the laws on the books, like the criminal penalties, the Schedule 1, and then the DSHS rules are in conflict with each other, right?
Yeah.
Like the scheduling of these THCs are in conflict with the laws on the books in Texas. Everything, like some of the lawyers that we consult with are saying that it's very much in conflict. THCA is a gray area.
Hemp laws in Texas are more confusing than ever, and we wanted to talk about them. Of course, hemp is just a legal term for cannabis with up to 0.3% delta-9 THC, the plant's main psychoactive ingredient. Marijuana is a legal term for cannabis with more than 0.3% delta-9. But cannabis contains lots of other ingredients, including something called THCA, not psychoactive by itself, but converts to delta-9 when heated or smoked. And that's why something called THCA flower and concentrate has been sold for years in Texas, legally, so to speak. And it's basically just like the cannabis you'd buy anywhere. Another cannabinoid is called delta-8, not as powerful as delta-9, popular in things like sleep gummies. So all that was being sold until two things happened this year. One, the Department of State Health Services began counting THCA toward the legal delta-9 limit, but those rules only applied to retailers and manufacturers. But the other thing that happened was the Texas Supreme Court reversed a ruling that had allowed for the sale of delta-8 and THCP and other cannabinoids besides delta-9, saying the Department of State Health Services could treat those as Schedule 1 substances, alongside things like heroin and LSD. Hemp businesses are back in court, in federal court and state court. They are suing over all of this. In fact, a new lawsuit was filed this week on the delta-8 issue. And so I brought in policy expert and lobbyist Sarah Todd with the Texas Cannabis Policy Coalition and Chris Perri, a criminal defense attorney in Austin. And I also brought in Texas Newsroom editor Neena Satija to serve as our person on the street who's not really following this stuff closely but is curious, so she could keep us grounded and ask a lot of the questions that people are asking in the comments.
Right, there had been a long, and Sarah probably knows more about that lawsuit, but there had been a long lawsuit from 2021 on that was kind of arguing that the DSHS didn't have authority to make these rulings, and the Texas Supreme Court, of course, kind of struck down those arguments, kind of about a separation of powers of the judiciary from the legislature, and that the DSHS had that legislative authority, and you can't get these judges coming in. But to answer your question, a delta-8 would be synthetic, and so these synthetics are now illegal, so technically possessing them under a gram would be a state jail felony, 1 to 4 grams. Third degree felony means 2 to 10 years in jail or prison. Second degree felony is 4 to 400 grams, and then first degree is over 400. Obviously, your package of gummies wouldn't implicate that, but it probably could implicate the 4 to 400 range, which would be a second degree. But I mean, you're talking Austin. Here in Austin, nothing really would happen, but that's kind of the problem with Texas laws a little bit, is that every jurisdiction is different. It's not like Colorado where you have a state's attorney who's in the Capitol kind of creating policy for the rest of the state's attorneys to go at. It's every DA is individually elected, and we have over 400 counties, probably about 400 judicial districts with separate DAs, separate police departments. So depending on a more conservative county wanting to go after this, they could prosecute somebody significantly for having these synthetics.
Let me actually ask about that in terms of the grams. So less than 1 gram, 1 to 4 grams. Is that like the number of like how much the gummies weigh, or how? Okay, so
or
like
the quantity
even
of delta-8 in the gummy,
or is
it's the weight of the total product.
It's the weight of the total
Yes.
product. Okay, so if someone had a bag, I mean, I know, like, I'm thinking of Eastside Austin Pharmacy, I think is what it's called. Eastside Pharmacy? I can't remember what it's called. But a pharmacy on the east side, a local like Austin-owned pharmacy, not a CVS, and they have Hometown Heroes gummies. I think they had Delta-8 and Delta-9. And, so, like, if you had a bag of, like, 10 gummies, that's probably going to weigh between 1 and more than 4 grams. So that possession of that would be even more than just a state jail felony. That would be the highest level.
Second degree, yeah,
Second degree.
You'd be 2 to 20. They couldn't, but highest level would be over 400 grams, which would get you the first degree, which is 5 to life. Now we're talking most of these probation. I mean, first offense, nobody's going to be sending you to prison for that, but it is scary. These numbers are scary. Prosecutors can obviously leverage a high charge to get you to plea to something lower, thinking, hey, you're facing this. Why don't you take this misdemeanor conviction?
Well, right, and having a bag of gummies would be a Delta 8 gummies would constitute a second degree felony. It would be at least probably more than 4. If it weighs more than 4 grams, is what you're saying.
Right, exactly. Now, I think the irony here is that the Delta 8 was created to get around the illegal Delta 9 laws, but now what I would suggest is just get the real thing, get the Delta 9 now, because under the 0.3% hemp exemption, because they do use, I mean, this is where using the aggregate weight helps. I mean, using the aggregate weight doesn't help in your criminal penalty because you're talking about 50 grams when only like this actual amount of drugs in the substance is less than probably 1 gram. But the loophole that allows you to possess now naturally occurring Delta 9 THC is that if you divide the amount of THC in there by the aggregate weight, it's almost always less than 0.3%, even if you have like a 10 milligram gummy. So you have a 10 milligram gummy, all the sugar around it weighs enough, so 10 milligram divided by that weight is less than 0.3%, and then boom, you have legal D9. So what I would suggest is just substitute out your gummies and your drinks for real D9 and don't use these synthetics. Which is probably better overall.
Just like, so I understand though, when they talk about a criminal penalty of like 2 years to 4 years or whatever it was, does that mean that it's like a mandatory minimum of 2 years? No, okay.
No, it's very, and that's one of the problems with Texas law actually is there's so much discretion, between jurisdictions. Is you can give somebody anywhere between 2 to 20, or you can probate those sentences. You can a judge always has an option of probating or suspending.
What does that mean,
probating?
That
means go on probation.
Okay, got it.
Which is pretty strict. Some people that actually have drug problems, probation is almost impossible to get through with drug tests. I really feel really sorry for addicts put on that situation. Let's say you're trying to use some THC to come down from a bigger addiction like heroin or something, and you're using it to help come down during some of those awful relapse periods or and uncomfortable periods, and then all of a sudden you test positive for that and you can go to prison when you're trying to do like the right thing and get off something. But yeah, probation, I don't want to say probation is a good option for everybody. And then you would be stuck with, hey, I can either take felony probation or go to prison, and that's a really rough choice for some people.
Right, when just like a month ago or 2 months ago, none of that was, they wouldn't put you in handcuffs for having a bag of Delta 8 gummies. Like, that's all just different now.
So you legally started a habit, and then your habit is now illegal. It doesn't really seem fair.
I mean, just the psychological impacts of an arrest are lasting.
Good point,
like,
Sarah.
lifelong. Just being arrested. Not to mention, like, the cascading effects of that arrest and how it impacts your life. And once a conviction can keep you from student loans, housing, driver's license suspension. Like, it's not just like, oh, I got a cite and release or whatever, I have a ticket to pay. There are all kinds of psychological impacts. Like,
you're right.
That literally, I mean, like, that lasts forever. It is traumatic.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you'd have to go to jail. This isn't a cite and release type of offense.
Yeah, felony is not a cite and release offense. That's correct. I think.
Depending on the amount, right, that you're caught with.
Mm-hmm. So, but if it's a Delta 8, if Austin police pull you over, and I know that under basically the marijuana policy for the Austin Police Department is they will not arrest you if it's under a certain amount and it's not attached to a more serious crime. But if they catch you with a bottle of gummies and it says Delta 8 right on it, like, it sounds like they wouldn't have a choice but to arrest you in that circumstance.
Yes, I'm pretty sure Austin police issued a statement a policy statement that they were going to have to arrest for those situations. Now, there is the trauma of the arrest. I agree with Sarah. I do think our DA, we're protected by a really good DA here in Austin who is who's really against some of these state governmental laws that are ridiculous. And I don't think Jose Garza, the DA in Austin, would ever prosecute somebody on a felony level for something like that. But it doesn't change the fact that getting arrested and going to jail and having to bail out and all that is a traumatic experience for somebody. And then, I mean, we're a very small section of the state. I mean, Austin is just an exception here. Everybody else
Well,
is going to face a charge.
And a lot of people watching this are not in Austin, probably most. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I figured.
And I wonder, like, how, Chris suggested if you're using Delta 8 gummies, just switch to Delta 9, but do you know how if they can even tell the difference, Sarah? Is that possible in the field? I don't think it is, right? I don't know. I mean, apart from the packaging.
No, I mean, you need like really serious testing, right? You need a mass spectrometer to see what are the contents of these products. And I think it kind of depends on if the city has the resources to pay the money to do those tests. I mean, that's the other part of this is like the financial resources taken up by these low-level charges are insane. It's such a waste of time for
Other than the
system.
packaging,
It's like a huge waste of time
So
to
other than the
prosecute
packaging,
people.
they'd have to like send it off to a lab, wait. I
Yeah,
would
to know for
imagine-
sure what's in a product, you
Yeah.
have to send it to a lab.
I do think the packaging is important though for the mental state element of our crimes, because if your packaging, for example, says it's legal, I mean, obviously the D8 one's different because it was legal when you bought it, different now. But let's say your packaging says it's under 0.3% THC9, and you're buying D9 Delta 9 THC, and then they later lab test it and show that there's some in here that's over that. I don't think I mean, obviously they can arrest you. I mean, they can arrest you for anything, but I don't think they can sustain a conviction on that because you were knowingly buying something that said on it, and you have a right
Yeah,
to trust this
that makes
packaging, so you weren't knowingly possessing an illegal substance. So I think as long as, I don't think we have to worry as consumers about whether that packaging has the correct amounts on it. If the packaging says that, I think that satisfies my job as a Texan to not knowingly possess an illegal substance, even if it's illegal inside of that packaging.
But Sarah, it's pretty much safe for people now to go buy Delta 9 products. Like I had someone ask me on YouTube, is it safe to buy Willie Nelson's? He has they call it like a hemp spirit, because it's under 0.3%. I did the math, and like if it were over 0.3% Delta 9, it would be like insanely powerful and too powerful to have a 15 milliliter.
It's also heavy, right?
Yeah,
Probably
because
the
it's
first-
measured by dry weight, right? So yes, it's by
But that's the other
weight
thing.
of the Delta 9 THC in the overall weight of that liquid. It's compliant.
That's where I also get confused because they say
Yeah.
by dry weight. Well, if you take all the liquid out, what's left?
I know it's really
Like, how would they
confusing.
even know? Okay, so
But they're selling it at specs, so it's probably safe, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. No, those products are all still compliant and under the rules.
So where is the biggest confusion, you think?
Oh man, I think the biggest confusion comes in with the penalties. A lot of people were not aware that these penalties were on the books. These have been our state laws since 1973, I believe, these possession penalties. They have not changed in that long. And then I think the other confusion is like, wait, which THCs or which cannabinoids are allowed and how much am I allowed to possess or buy? Like, it's become very confusing because we don't have like a comprehensive public health campaign around these products, right? Like the general public doesn't really understand the cannabis plant. We're still researching it. Scientists like in general, it's still being researched. What all is,
yes,
Right.
that's a great
chemicals in the plant. What?
Yeah, I actually that's like a big question that I have is actually what is, and we might just get down to like really.
Well, I brought up the
Yeah.
rule, the new DSHS rule that reclassifies Delta 8, because I was also wondering, like, is THCP included? Because that's a really potent cannabinoid that it was included in a lot of products. Delta 10, yes. But I mean, the wording of the rule, and forgive me if this is not written by a broadcast journalist, but it defines, this is rescheduling and saying this is what is illegal, right? Tetrahydrocannabinol, so THCs, that are naturally contained in a plant of the genus Cannabis, except for up to 0.3% Delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinols in hemp, as well as, so it's saying, okay, 0.3% is legal, but then it's going back to what is also illegal, which is synthetic equivalents of the substances contained in the cannabis plant or in the resinous extractives so in the resin, or synthetic substances, derivatives, and their isomers with similar chemical structure and pharmacological activity, blah, blah, blah. So it's saying like...
That's not even, you didn't even get through the whole thing.
Yeah, right. Just then it gives some examples. such as the following. But this it's just like this section. But then, so it's saying like the synthetic equivalents of these substances. But then when you go to the statute.
Now, you're reading from what exactly?
This is the Department of State Health Services rule that banned Delta 8. So it added it to this Schedule 1 list of controlled substances, and that's where the felony aspect of it comes in. Okay. So like marijuana is not on this list. Possessing marijuana, it's not a Schedule 1 controlled substance, right? Because it's not a felony to possess smaller amounts of marijuana. But what this rule is saying is like, okay, THCs that are naturally contained in the plant except for 0.3% Delta 9 are Schedule 1, but then when you go to the actual law that legalized it, it defines as hemp. This is what's legal, guys, according to the state statute, is basically, the plant in this chapter, they're talking about the law. Hemp means cannabis sativa and, up to the 0.3% Delta 9 THC. And included in this definition of hemp is the seeds of the plant and all derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids, isomers, acids, salts, and salts of isomers, whether growing or not, with a Delta 9 THC concentration of not more than 0.3%. So that to me means, you talked about there's over 100 cannabinoids in
hundreds, yes.
Yeah, so the DSH, just a plain, I'm not a lawyer, so forgive me. But, your average person looking at this, who's been following it, and I've been following it pretty closely, it sounds like the DSHS rule says everything but Delta 9 is a felony to possess. The state law says, no, everything in a cannabis plant with less than 0.3% Delta 9 THC is legal to possess. So which is it, Sarah?
There is no precedent set yet.
Wait. Can you say again what you just said?
Sorry.
It sounds like
that was a lot of words, and I'm sorry.
No, but then you distilled it, but I missed it.
So what I was trying to say is the state rule that banned Delta 8 and made it a felony, it appears to say everything in the cannabis. So here's what's on the Schedule 1 list of controlled substances, according to DSHS. Everything in hemp except for Delta 9 THC under 0.3%. Well, what the state law says is actually what is legal is everything in the hemp plant. You follow what I'm saying? So
they're in conflict.
They're in conflict,
yes,
right?
Those laws are in conflict.
And that's where I wanted to get to one of the biggest questions that I had, because other people have asked me this, and maybe I'm getting it wrong. My understanding was hemp flower, cannabis flower, under that 0.3% Delta 9, and this is why I talked about THCA earlier. It can have and even if in marijuana legal states, if you go to a dispensary and buy an eighth of weed, most of the Delta 9 starts going to be THCA that converts to Delta 9 when you smoke it. And it's the same thing in Texas, at least it was. So, but I thought that the DSHS rules, I'm so sorry, I wanted to avoid getting into these weeds.
No, we should.
But the DSHS rules that apply to the sale and manufacture of these products, now they're counting THCA as Delta 9. So they're saying if you're selling or making it, sorry guys, but you can't sell or make THCA products. But the possession, my understanding was because of the state statute, it was still legal to possess not only hemp flower, but also dabs, rosin, hemp concentrate, where you're basically taking the flower, and as long as you're not heating it to the point where that THCA is converted to Delta 9, you're smashing it, and all of those extracts, as the state law defines them, extracts, they flow in, and then people can then vape those extracts, and it's a less harmful way of inhaling Delta 9 than smoking a joint, because you're doing it at a lower temperature. Is it legal to possess hemp flower? Is it legal to dab concentrate in Texas? I think a lot of people are wondering that.
Under the new rules, concentrated marijuana products are not legal, and they're a state jail felony.
But the state statute says that they're legal by a plain language reading of it. So is it just, like you said,
well, with the new rules, to my knowledge, there is no concentrate that will come out under 0.3% THC.
Yeah, there you
go. It just doesn't. You can't. You're concentrating that product, and you're extracting all the resins from the flower, and so you can't have
But
a
if it's been sold as
compliant amount of
THCA,
Fake delinquent, it was
concentrate.
you said it wouldn't be concentrated.
Yeah.
But
But it's sold-
it wouldn't get you high at all because you'd be nothing. You were vaping essentially.
But it's sold as, like, even before this total THC rule took effect, that classified all THCA for sale and manufacture as Delta 9, those products, those concentrates were sold in Texas as THCA concentrate.
Right.
So they would say 0.2% Delta 9,
Yeah.
75% THCA. And everyone knows, okay, well, once I pop this in my dab rig, it's going to convert to Delta 9 and I
Right.
can inhale it.
Yeah.
But so was that legal before and they were just taking they just had different shops had different interpretations? Or, I realize this is...
I believe that it was compliant, and I think it was up to like your how comfortable you were with taking that risk and selling those products.
But now it's
That
not.
I mean, I think it, but now it is not. No, the rules that were put forward separate from the THCs being put into Schedule 1, there were new rules put forward by DSHS that dictate total THCA total THC includes the THCA. So there's like a calculation where you take it's 0.877 times however much THCA is in the product equals the total THC, including Delta 9.
Okay.
And
And that was for the sale. That's regulating the
That's
sale
the-
and manufacture, right?
Yes.
But then as far as possession, you're saying this new DSHS rule that bans Delta 8 also applies to concentrate, or...
yes, all products.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
what about... Okay. I'm still confused because my plain language reading of the statute says it's legal,
Yeah.
and you're saying that's a conflict that you're pointing to.
Yeah, it is. It's a conflict. And there's no precedent set by any cases that have been prosecuted yet.
Can we back up a little bit?
Okay, yeah.
But go ahead if you have.
I
like, a
just
burning
wanted to ask
question.
about hemp flower, but if
Yeah.
you want to stay on concentrate, then let's stay on concentrate.
Well, no, I actually just want to get back to super basics
Okay,
here.
let's
What
do
are
that
all of these
first.
things?
Let's do
What
that
is
first.
hemp? Like all I know about are gummies and brownies.
That's why we
cookies.
got you here.
I don't know
Keep
anything
us
about
grounded.
the hemp. Like, yeah, what are the various ways that like people consume marijuana, or is it hemp? Is it marijuana? That's a whole other question, I guess.
Right, well-
existential and legal.
Well, those are just, it's a legal designation,
Yeah,
hemp versus
yeah.
marijuana.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's all
the
cannabis.
same plant.
It's all
Right.
words.
It's the same plant.
These are, I mean, this is people who want to get a high from consuming THC.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Mostly, overwhelmingly, I would say.
Generally, yes, yeah. So I guess like, what are the different ways of consumption, and then which one? Like, I think that would just be helpful. And then it's like, which ones are confusing? I mean, it's all confusing. I think for almost all of them, whether they're legal or not. But I think if we could break it down that way, that would be kind of helpful. So like,
Yeah.
we talked about gummies, which I keep coming back to, which is because I'm most familiar with
Yeah,
those.
eating.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
like, Chris, you were saying like probably it sounds like the advice you're giving people. I mean, you can't, give them like specific legal advice. It's to switch out if you have something that says Delta 8, switch it out for Delta 9. Out of curiosity, like, is there a good way to dispose of a Delta 8?
Oh, just throw it in the trash.
Throw it in the trash?
Yeah, you're not possessing something in the trash that's considered abandoned.
Okay, that's good to know actually,
Yeah,
because I was a little bit
That's
curious
why the
about
police
that.
can go to your trash and search it because you've abandoned it. You're no longer in care custody.
I
and
see.
all of
So
it,
they don't
yeah.
need a warrant to search your
That's
trash.
right, that's
Okay, that's kind
learning
of
a
You
lot
don't have an
today.
expectation of privacy in your trash. So
Okay.
wow.
Okay. So best thing to do is throw those Delta 8.
if you're
gummies
worried,
in.
I mean, let's be practical here though. Is somebody going to come do a search warrant at your house, like to suspect Neena of
Yeah.
eating
Although
some
After this video, you never know.
We know you've got 8 Delta 8 gummies in there.
You're taken by a
Yeah.
police officer if there's a search warrant for your house. So I would say don't bring that stuff on the road. Maybe just quietly consume it, finish them off. And then I just, unless you're actively dealing drugs or doing something nefarious that has the police targeting your house for a search warrant, which we will say there are search warrants executed in this city, but in all over Texas. But I mean, not on normal people just eating like some gummies in their house. I would say don't travel with them because if you do get pulled over,
Yeah.
your expectation of privacy in a vehicle is so much more reduced from your home. You don't have to have a search warrant to search a vehicle.
Yeah, okay.
So don't travel with them at all. If you're it's kind of like if you're super risk averse, yeah, go ahead and get them out because I guess there is a 1 in a million chance you get searched. There's some accident happens with your kid and the EMS comes in and then something gets found, or maybe the kid ingests some of your DA and gets in trouble, and then what did you give him? Oh, CPS is here.
Yeah.
Now we've got a 6-month CPS BS issue to deal with before they trying to tell me they're going to take my kids away. So
Right.
those scenarios would just go out the window if you just threw them away.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So that's kind of covers, and same with like other consumables, like same kind of deal. If you're,
Like-
I don't know if there are Delta 8 brownies or cookies, but like just anything that,
edibles.
And
so
again,
there's all kinds of
that's what you would
edibles,
call them,
tinctures
Yeah.
that you can ingest, you eat, and then there's smoking and vaping.
Okay. So
Yeah,
moving on to that, like, is that where we start talking about the flower?
Yeah, well, because
Yes.
I'm just wondering if the concentrate is rescheduled as if the concentrate is a felony to possess, like THCA, what we would call, which is I don't know if this is a new term, like invented in Texas or hemp legal states, THCA concentrate, because you can still order it from out of state into Texas, is my understanding. But
Okay, wait, let's talk about that for a second. 'Cause that's
Okay.
another way people can consume. So just to start from there.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, we talked about edibles, and now you can order concentrate potentially from out of state.
and flour and gummies, right? Like, why
Yeah.
are companies from out of state willing to ship into Texas? Do you think?
Because it's federally legal.
Okay.
Those
Right.
products
Okay.
are still federally legal under the Farm Bill, the 2018 Farm Bill. And there's different laws in every state for hemp and cannabis.
Right.
So
But obviously, like, you wouldn't, I mean, it would probably not be a good idea to order some of those things, at least if they were marketed as Delta 8, because if you possess them in your house, then.
Right. I don't think anybody's going to ship them here anymore after the Texas law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
a
would be
lot.
smart.
Yes. Most reputable companies are not going to ship into the state of Texas because of the new rules.
But is it legal to possess hemp flour? Is your
Yes.
Okay, so you
That's
can,
my understanding that yes, it is.
not to sell it, but
Not
to
to
possess
sell
it.
it.
So if you, before the ban, someone stocked up and they bought a pound of...
Well, so here's the thing is hemp flour is not outright banned. The rules did not ban it outright. They didn't put any language about smokable hemp flour, but by default, with the total Delta 9 THC percentage having to stay under 0.3, there is no flour that's compliant.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second.
Compliant for
there is,
sale,
but for
right.
compliant for sale.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Right.
So, really, really dumb question. What is hemp flour?
Great
What
question.
is that?
I think it's a great question because, especially if you grew up around like marijuana, it's like hemp flour. Isn't that like what they make rope out of? Why would anyone smoke
Right,
that? And that's a
yeah.
question I see a
No, it's the
lot.
same exact thing. And
Yeah.
rope is made from the stalk,
Right, yeah.
not the flower of the plant.
Right, exactly.
But it's what everyone thinks of
It's
when you think of
cannabis.
weed.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
cannabis. It's the flower of the plant
Yeah.
that we dry and consume.
Right.
That's where all the cannabinoids are present, and the trichomes and the leaves and the
Yeah,
That's
and the
the
way that
flower
you
of
would
the
consume
plant.
a hemp flower versus an edible is by smoking it, by rolling it into a joint and smoking it.
yeah,
As you can
you
tell,
would smoke
I'm
it,
very
and you
ignorant
can
about this.
also, you can also like bake it in the oven, heat it up at a low temperature, and then put it into your own homemade edibles. You can you can make it into a tea and drink that. You can soak it in oil and consume that as a tincture.
Okay, those
But
are all
at
different
what
ways.
point does that become a felony? If the concentrate is illegal... So I know this is...
Yeah,
so-
okay, so then what is the concentrate versus the flower?
Okay, so the concentrate, and maybe Sarah might be better equipped to answer this.
The
Yeah.
concentrate is, I mean, there's a couple of different ways to make it, but essentially you take the flour and you either use a solvent that, you kind of can think of a tube. This isn't really, it's made in with lab equipment, but a solvent like
Well, BHO is a popular one, right?
butane
Yeah.
or propane are the main ones. You push that through the flour, and out comes all the resins of the flour, and it becomes this concentrated like wax-like substance, which is why you've heard it called wax. Dabs are like a shorthand for like, it's just that comes from like a dabble do ya kind of thing. Like it's just like you just take a little dab of it.
Okay.
Because it's so concentrated, you only need to consume a small amount.
Because,
Okay.
and the idea being, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that like the THC is not soluble in water, but it is soluble in the solvents, right? I guess so. It will
Okay.
dissolve, and then
Okay.
the butane it gets soaked
Okay.
into the butane. The butane evaporates, and what you're left with is. But then there's also the way solventless.
The other main way is What a lot of people are familiar with, like old school hash, bubble hash, water hash. You take all of your dried flower, you put it in a big ice water bucket. This is very simplified. You stir it, all the trichomes fall to the bottom. You take those, you dry it, and you can consume that. Those are the trichomes. They're cured. You can consume that as what you would know as like old school hash or keef.
Okay.
But then to make rosin, you press that at a very low temperature. It becomes like a liquid. And then when it's cured, you leave it, it becomes all different kinds of
Textures?
yes, thank you.
And then it's like a dab.
And those
it's
are
like a
dabs.
dab
Yeah,
of
those
it.
are, that's what
And you
rosin
just like
is.
dab it like here.
It's so there's
This is like a how-to. Like it's
Well, and then you vaporize it.
Yeah.
You vaporize. So
There's
like
various
what
equipment you can
everyone
use.
is really
Guys really
familiar,
having
right,
fun
with a
with this.
vape pen. The cartridges on the vape pen,
Yeah.
that's concentrate. A lot of people don't really conceptualize that as like concentrated marijuana, but it is because it's in the vape pen. You know, it's all one piece. But then you can buy them separately. It comes in a little jar, and you can put it on a dab rig. There's electronic dab rigs, and then there's like a torch and banger where you have like a water pipe. There's a bowl, a specific bowl on it. You heat it up with an
All these are
electronic
things that-
here,
I think the
torch,
question
and
is,
you
like,
put it in there and
are
you
these
vaporize
ways
it.
now illegal in
Right.
certain instances? Are they still legal? What is there? Are you guys saying there's a difference between like it's legal to possess the flower, but the flower by itself doesn't do anything for you, right? Like
Well-
you got to do these things to it in order to get the
can
high
roll
that
it
you're
in a
looking
joint
for.
and smoke it.
Does it then become illegal once it becomes that concentrate that you're consuming? Like how does what is illegal
I
about?
think the flower is still illegal to
Okay.
possess as long as it's over 0.3% THC.
But if it's under 0.3% and you have a lot of THCA in it, then you can possess
But
it.
yeah,
right?
under the I mean, I think under the new laws they're calculating the THCA into the THC, so I think a police department could say, hey, your flower is technically not under the hemp exemption
Well-
anymore. And then you'd be back to the old you're under the misdemeanor laws for flower at that point.
Yeah.
Where it's under 2 ounces is a Class B misdemeanor, which is punishable by up to 180 days in jail. 2 to 4 ounces is we're talking about larger amounts of flour here too than we're talking about
Right.
with the felonies with the oils. Class A, and then you go up from there over 4 ounces to felony.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Possession of hemp flower with under 0.3% delta 9 THC, but higher levels of THCA, is still legal to possess but not sell or manufacture?
I don't
Is
think
it
it's
because-
legal to possess
Gray
because I
area.
think
I
it was
think
all
it's-
under
It's
the
a
old
gray area?
interpretation. Because the old interpretation was using this kind of, I don't know, I'll call it a legal fiction. It was a creative, great legal fiction, but then they said, oh, it's not actually THC in your flower, it's THCA. And
But I
that's how
mean,
they were
it's-
selling it, and that's how they were rebranding it, and that's how all of your old Class B misdemeanor flower statutes got off. But if they're now saying that the THC is equal to the THCA plus the THC in it, or 0.88 times the THCA, then I don't see how any of the flower. I don't think that loophole that kind of went around the statutes would apply anymore because the definition has just struck your loophole.
So are you saying that anyone who possesses hemp flower, is it like with the Delta 8 gummy, like all of a sudden what you're possessing is now illegal to possess?
Yes, I would say that. I think marijuana flowers we're back to old laws on marijuana flower.
Sarah, what's your read?
It hasn't been decided.
Okay. Because I'm looking at the statute.
It's not definitively resolved because it's the DSH rules,
The state
DSH's rules are in conflict with state law when we adopted the Farm Bill, right?
So
with our adoption of the federal Farm Bill. There hasn't been a precedent set, and I
That's
think
right.
it would
So
really
has that
rely
always
on.
been the case? That didn't change with this ruling recently, like
mean,
that
the-
issue with the hemp flower and
the
whether you can possess it or not.
The Texas Farm Bill.
Because the
Delta 9.
news that I've just really
No,
don't
please,
understand.
please.
Like, this is just going back to super basics. Is like the big news, like in the last month or so, has been that now possession of Delta 8 is a felony.
Right.
But what is that? Was the hemp flower thing always like this thing that we're talking about now in the conflict? Was that true even before? Has that
No.
always been true, or is
No.
that now true because possession?
That's
of
now
Delta?
true because of the new DSHS rules that were put forward
Okay.
and became in effect on July 31st, I believe was the
And
date.
they became in effect because of the court, because they had
No.
been struck
Separately.
down? Separately,
Separately, DSHS.
That's what I wanted to make sure. That's what I
So
thought.
there was
Okay.
the court, the state Supreme Court case that came out that was decided earlier this year, and at the same time, DSHS was making rules for the sale and manufacture of hemp products in Texas. Those were posted,
Okay.
and then there was an immediate lawsuit by the Texas Hemp Business Council and many other hemp businesses in Texas. That's when we had, it's legal, it's not, it's on, it's off, it's on, because of
Yeah.
all of these like court
These court rulings. Okay,
rulings that were happening.
but as
But
of where it stands now,
the rules are in effect, and the synthetics are Schedule 1, or the THC.
So Delta
So
8
yes,
is
it
illegal.
was two separate things that
things
happened
at the- close to
kind
the
of
same
around
time.
the same time.
Okay. Okay, so Delta 8 became illegal because of a court ruling, a court action.
Yeah, basically.
Yes.
The Texas Supreme Court overturning a temporary injunction.
Yeah, which, well,
Yes.
temporary is in like years long.
5
but yeah, I
years
guess temporary,
almost,
right.
yeah.
Yes.
And then almost at the same time, the
Yeah.
state implemented new rules
Yeah.
that now make essentially possession of the hemp flower illegal when it wasn't before.
At
Well,
least
yes.
the sale and manufacture of it.
Sale and manufacture.
so
Sale and
I think you're
manufacture
saying
of it,
the
but-
new DSHS Delta 8 rule is what makes the hemp flower illegal.
Yes.
Right.
I kind of think from the practical person on the street perspective, just kind of being a criminal defense attorney, what's
Yeah.
going on through these clients' minds, it has been really confusing because when the federal law and the hemp exemption came in, that wasn't affecting flower at all at first because nobody had created this THCA idea. I mean, THCA wasn't like a new law; it was like a new legal loophole, new legal creation by really creative people. So when the hemp exemption comes in, what that was really causing was gummies, brownies to be legal. You still weren't seeing shops sell any type of D9 flower. Then the D8 came, and that was the first time you'd see shops sell some type of flower. You're like, whoa, what's this flower in your shops? It's Texas. It's like, oh, it's not actually D9. It's this weird stuff we sprayed on it. It tastes terrible. And then, so that was how, and that wasn't as popular, like that flower. And then the THCA just kind of interpretation comes out, and all of a sudden these shops are selling basically what you could get in Colorado or something, and it's the same thing, and people are like, oh, I guess I could possess it now because they're selling it. But there was never some law saying misdemeanor marijuana flower is off the books. It was just that we had reinterpreted it just kind of by really creative people in the industry. We had reinterpreted that THC into THCA. And then so people were just running around smoking marijuana, being like, this isn't illegal. Probably dangerous outside of Austin in some places that don't have the police as much on board with it, but that was the interpretation. And then now this is saying, no, your interpretations about THCA are wrong. We're going to add that into THC. So that kind of makes it like, well, the whole basis for me thinking I could roll around town with flower is gone now. So I got to go back to my old belief that it's the misdemeanor law could be enacted because there is now authority that has struck down my interpretation of THCA.
All right.
That's kind of how I'd say it. It was never like a law saying this is legal. It's just really creative interpretation.
Is that how you?
Yes, it was interpretation of. I mean, look, I think when these laws were made, they didn't understand the pharmacology of the cannabis plant. That's it. There was just a misunderstanding of the science of cannabis by the lawmakers.
I do need to just wrap up here, but I do want to ask like a few questions, just one last question, maybe, and if you have a question too.
Yeah.
But so I just want to ask, first of all, Chris, like this confusion, I realize no one wants to get arrested and hauled into court for possessing cannabis products, but does this confusion, would it help someone in court if they're trying to beat a conviction?
Yeah, I think there's lots of claims you can make. I think just based on the fact that an everyman like Nathan Bernier was having trouble consolidating the apparent conflict between the hemp law statute and the regulations would kind of support an unconstitutional vagueness argument that the normal person, a reasonable person, doesn't know what's legal and illegal. So that's I would advance that constitutional argument. I think also you can always try to be protected by your packaging. Be like, I thought this was a normal person would have thought that they were not possessing an illegal substance, because you have to have a mental state. It's not just knowingly possessing the substance. I have to knowingly possess something illegal inside there.
That you know is
Yeah,
illegal.
you have to
You
believe.
need to know it's illegal.
So if I believe I'm possessing water and this contained like an illegal liquid substance, I wouldn't be in trouble unless there was reason to believe that I knew what was actually in there was illegal. So I would go with those arguments, I think, at first. And I think you're mostly protected if you don't worry about what's really inside inside your packaging, you don't have to worry about retesting it yourself. It's like if your packaging is telling you it's legal and it's post July 31st, I think you're okay.
Wow.
But it seems like it's also important to have packaging. I mean, I feel like, we see stories about all kinds of people with there was the case in Houston with this undocumented immigrant who was shot, and they were like, oh, he's got powder, we think it's meth. Turned out that it wasn't meth. Like, I just wonder also, in general, I'm sure you probably give clients this advice all the time anyway, but it's like when you're carrying a substance that looks like it could be drugs and isn't, or looks like it could be illegal and isn't, like, what is the best way to make that clear? Because otherwise,
go through your TSA mind. If you're going to the airport, what do I want my prescription meds in a random bottle, or do I want it in the prescription bottle? And I think just consider if you're traveling with your stuff, it's just like going to the airport. Put them in your prescription bottles.
Keep it in your original packaging
your
that
packaging.
has the COA, the Certificate of Analysis.
And that's what Austin police are advising people
Yeah.
to do. So if their officers apparently catch you with hemp products, they'll let you keep them as long as it's in the packaging.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's to stop anyone from just putting marijuana products in a hemp packaging. Nothing really, right? But
Well, yeah, then
that's
how
their
would they prove it?
system, right?
yeah. Well, then, and also, and again, throw away Delta 8, throw away your hemp flower? Did you say the sale and manufacture is illegal, but not the possession?
Apparently, the possession may be illegal too, but it's
Right.
not entirely clear because it's all very confusing.
Your interpretation for you both is that it is illegal possession. That's how you would interpret it, based on the new state rules.
Maybe.
I just think that
It would take to throw a wrench in it also is that THCA over time converts to Delta 9
Right.
in your
Just-
flower,
yeah.
right? And so if it's older flower, when you bought it, it could be compliant. And over time, months, it could turn non-compliant or to a higher THC. But I think it all comes down to like the test, right? And the conviction, the test, the judge's interpretation of the law.
This feels, I don't know, I feel like we haven't.
I feel more confused than when
Yeah.
we began.
I know.
That's
It is confusing, and there's just the issue hasn't been definitively
Yeah.
resolved around THCA.
Okay.
I think it's keep your packaging. I think if you're stopped by law enforcement,
And let's quickly
stay
remind people,
quiet.
because I don't know if we did, what is THCA?
It's tetrahydrocannabinolic acid. It's basically
you.
Yeah.
It's THCA. It's THCA is not psychoactive by itself, like per se, but when you heat it or smoke it, it converts to Delta 9.
Yes.
And so that's what was sold. This is the loophole that they're talking about where
Okay.
white flower was legal.
Okay,
So-
okay. So all hemp flower or whatever, they all have THC. Like everything has THCA as well
the
as
flower
THC.
does, yeah.
Okay.
And
The flower would have
concentrate,
THC.
yeah.
Okay. But I guess ultimately, the flower is not. That feels new to kind of point out to people that actually, under the state rules, just possession of the flower is also an issue. It's not just about Delta 8 versus Delta 9.
Yeah, and I think it comes from the fact that this was always illegal, and it was that interpretation of THCA that led to a belief. I'm not saying flower was ever really legal to possess. It was a belief it was. We still had the misdemeanor laws on the books, but there was a belief it was. And if they're saying now that the THC equals the THCA times 0.88, I don't see how you can argue. I think it's hard to make that reasonable argument that you didn't know the flower was illegal. If you can no longer buy it at the store because it's illegal to sell, and that was the whole reason, your basis for now believing it was legal was that you could buy it at the store, and they've closed that off. Well, aren't we back to like the old belief under the misdemeanor law?
Okay, so
that's
it's not
how
a
I would
felony,
advise
but it's
people,
still-
just because I wouldn't
yeah.
want people to like get in. I tend to give more conservative advice on the possession stuff. I don't. And let's just be honest, most courts, most courts, most judges, they don't agree with like criminal defense fringe arguments. They are not in. They are into like a law and order attitude, and they're not going to go creativity. If somebody tells you your argument is creative, you're about to get told your argument's denied in law. So
are you putting out
I think you have to get
Q&As?
really creative.
Like, is this a new, these state rules for you? It's like, this is new, FYI.
I think
Be careful
the
with your hemp flower.
reinterpretations were new, and then now this is kind of putting us back to where we were before. It's kind of like we've gone back to it's like the Back to the Future. We've gone back to the past, kind of in a way.
Well,
Probably
Okay.
kind of to the point we were before
That's kinda
D8 was
musical.
created, when the only things you could buy were these edibles, and right before they got creative, that's kind of where we're at. Because they, as usual, the Texas legislature likes to squelch the creative ways to get around their statutes.
If you have interpretations of the new law and statute, leave it in the YouTube comments below. Maybe that will be the correct answer. We're still trying to figure this out, but thank you so much for watching. And thank you, Sarah and Chris, for coming down to KUT and talking to us, and Nina for joining us.
Thank you for
and,
indulging my very basic questions.
No, it's great. We need that because I think most people who have used these products are not coming to it with a background of expertise. They're just like, this is what's for sale in the store, and this is what I'm going to buy. Now it's not for sale, but I still have some. So I don't know. Hopefully we provided some clarity. If not, hopefully we
we just
we
confused everyone more.
enlightened you on how confusing this is. And it's not just a simple black and white issue at this moment in time, or at least it doesn't appear to be.